Let me tell you something right now. Life is not going to hand you success on a silver platter. Life is not that kind. Life will knock you down, strip you of everything you thought you needed, and then look at you like, now what you going to do? And in that moment, when you're staring at the pieces of yourself scattered on the floor, you've got two choices: stay broken or rebuild. See, a lot of people want success, but they don't want the rebuilding part. They want the glory without the grind, the trophy without the training, the applause without the sweat. But the truth is, success is not built on the easy days. Success is built when you take all the failures, all the disappointments, all the tears, and you decide to put yourself back together, stronger, smarter, sharper than before. I remember being at my lowest point when I had nothing but a dream and a whole lot of doubt. You know how people will clap for you when you're shining, but they'll laugh at you when you're struggling. Oh, they laughed. They told me I was crazy. They told me to quit. They told me to go get a real job. But I made up my mind I wasn't going to stay down. I was going to rebuild myself, brick by brick, prayer by prayer, hustle by hustle. And that's what some of you need to hear today. Stop waiting for somebody to come fix your life. Ain't nobody coming. You've got to pick up your own pieces and start stacking them. And here's the thing. When you rebuild yourself, don't rebuild the same version that broke down. Build a new version. Build the one that can handle the storms, the one that can carry the weight, the one that won't crumble every time life shakes you. It's just like renovating a house. If the old foundation cracked under pressure, why would you build the new one the same way? Tear it down, dig deeper, pour in stronger concrete this time. That's what rebuilding yourself looks like. You learn from the cracks. You strengthen the foundation. You reinforce the walls of your character. Now, let's be real, rebuilding hurts. It's uncomfortable because in order to rebuild, you've got to let go of some things, some habits, some excuses, and yes, even some people. You can't rebuild a skyscraper on a foundation meant for a shed. And you can't rebuild your life for success if you're still surrounding yourself with folks who think small, talk small, and dream small. Sometimes you've got to rebuild alone before the right people show up to climb with you. And listen, stop being afraid to fail again. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the blueprint. Every time you fall, you learn where the cracks are. Every time you stumble, you learn how to balance. Every time you get rejected, you learn how to adjust. That's how you rebuild into someone unstoppable. So here's what I need you to understand. Success is not about never breaking. Success is about rebuilding so well that the next time life tries to break you, it finds out you don't break the same way twice. You come back wiser, tougher, more determined. You rebuild with vision, with faith, with discipline, with persistence. Some of you are standing in the middle of your mess right now, wondering if you'll ever rise again. Let me tell you, you will. But it starts when you decide to pick up that first piece, to lay down that first brick, to take that first step. Don't worry about the whole staircase yet. Just rebuild step by step, day by day, choice by choice. Because when you finally finish rebuilding, when you look at the version of yourself you become, the one that can stand in storms, the one that carries wisdom, the one that inspires others, you'll realize the breakdown wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Success requires breaking down old versions of yourself before building stronger ones, because the truth is the person you were before is not equipped to handle the life you are dreaming of. You cannot step into the next level with the same mindset, the same habits, the same fears, the same excuses that held you back at the last level. Life has a way of forcing you into situations where you are confronted with your weaknesses, and instead of trying to patch them up temporarily, you've got to be willing to tear it all down and rebuild from the ground up. This is not easy, because breaking down your old self means letting go of comfort, familiarity, and sometimes even your own identity that you've been carrying for years. It feels like stepping into unknown territory, but that discomfort is exactly the sign that transformation is happening. Think about a house that has stood for decades, but the foundation is cracked, the walls are rotting, and the roof leaks every time it rains. You can paint the walls, you can add some furniture, you can light some candles to make it look pretty, but at the core, the structure is still weak. Eventually, the storm will come and the whole thing will fall apart. That is the same way life works. You can try to decorate your old self with surface level changes, but if the foundation of who you are, your mindset, your character, your daily habits is fragile, no matter what you achieve, it will collapse under pressure. The breaking down is necessary to expose those cracks, to admit the truth about where you stand, and to clear out the old so the new can stand firm. Many people resist this process because they don't want to admit that the version of themselves they've been carrying is no longer working. Pride gets in the way. Comfort gets in the way. The fear of starting over gets in the way. But the greatest obstacle to your success is not the challenges around you. It's the person you refuse to outgrow. That old self might have served you at one stage of life, but it cannot take you to the next stage. The habits that helped you survive will not be the same habits that help you thrive. The thinking that got you a job will not be the same thinking that builds you a business. The attitude that kept you safe will not be the same attitude that makes you bold enough to chase opportunities. Breaking down means admitting you've outgrown the old patterns, and rebuilding means being intentional about constructing the person you need to be for where you're headed. This is why so many people find themselves stuck in cycles. They keep trying to achieve something new with an outdated mindset. They want more money, but they're still thinking in terms of scarcity. They want a healthy relationship, but they're still holding on to bitterness from the last one. They want success in business, but they're still operating with procrastination and lack of discipline. Until you dismantle those old ways, you'll just keep building the same weak house over and over again, and it will keep collapsing the same way. Breaking down is not failure, it is wisdom. It is the recognition that you are choosing to reset before life forces you to. It is the courage to admit that growth requires subtraction before addition, pruning before blossoming, destruction before construction. The process of breaking down old versions of yourself can be painful because it often means letting go of pieces of your identity. If you've always seen yourself as the one who struggles, then stepping into abundance will feel strange. If you've always told yourself you're shy, then breaking that down to become more confident will feel uncomfortable. If you've always lived with excuses, then choosing discipline will feel like war against your own self. That inner battle is real, but it is necessary. You cannot wear old clothes into a new season and expect them to fit. The same way a snake sheds its skin to grow, you have to shed the layers of yourself that no longer serve where you're going. Breaking down is not just about losing, it's about gaining clarity. When you strip yourself of the unnecessary weight, you begin to see what really matters. You start recognizing which habits were distractions, which beliefs were lies, which fears were illusions. You begin to see the truth of who you are and who you're capable of becoming. Then from that place of clarity, you can start building. But this time, you're not building blindly, you are building with purpose. You're not just stacking bricks, you're laying a foundation that can handle storms, pressure, setbacks, and still stand tall. That's how true success is achieved, not by pretending the old version works, but by having the courage to break it down and rebuild yourself into the person who can hold the life you desire. Every great success story you've ever heard involved someone who had to break down before they built up. They had to tear down limiting beliefs, break free from toxic environments, destroy the comfort zone that kept them small. They had to lose parts of themselves that were no longer compatible with their future. That's the hidden part of success most people don't see. They only see the spotlight, the results, the applause, but they don't see the demolition work that happened behind closed doors. And if you're serious about your success, you've got to be willing to go through that same process. You've got to be willing to dismantle the person you've been so you can become the person you're meant to be. Rebuilding means replacing weak foundations with habits, faith, and discipline that last, because when life tests you, it will not check how good you look on the outside. It will check how strong you are on the inside. A weak foundation might hold you for a little while, but sooner or later, the weight of responsibility, the pressure of challenges, and the storms of disappointment will expose every crack. That is why people who achieve quick success without building strong habits or character often lose it just as quickly. They were standing on shaky ground. If you truly want to rebuild yourself for long-term success, you cannot settle for patchwork repairs. You must replace what is weak with something unshakable. Habits are the building blocks of that foundation. Success is not built in one big moment. It is built in the small choices you make every single day. Waking up on time, keeping promises to yourself, being consistent with your work, choosing discipline over excuses. These are the bricks you lay. A lot of people wait for motivation, but motivation is not what holds you up. When the storm comes, habits are. Habits turn discipline into autopilot. If you've trained yourself to keep moving forward, no matter how you feel, you don't stop when you're tired. You stop when you're done. Weak habits create a weak structure. Strong habits create stability. That success can rest on faith is another part of the foundation. Faith is not just about religion. It's about having belief in something greater than yourself, a vision, a purpose, a conviction that there is meaning behind the struggle. Without faith, the moment life gets hard, you'll question everything and give up. Faith is what allows you to rebuild even when you can't see the outcome yet. It gives you courage to take the first step without knowing where the staircase ends. When you have faith, setbacks don't destroy you. They redirect you. Faith is the anchor that keeps you steady when the winds of doubt and fear try to push you over. You cannot rebuild yourself for success if you don't believe success is possible for you. You've got to carry faith as your cement, the substance that binds all the other bricks together. Discipline is the steel that reinforces everything. You can have habits and you can have faith, but if you lack discipline, you'll keep starting and stopping, building and abandoning, promising and procrastinating. Discipline is doing what you said you would do long after the mood you set it in has faded. Discipline makes sure the foundation doesn't just exist, but endures. Discipline tells you to get up and grind even when you don't feel like it. Discipline tells you to say no to distractions, no to shortcuts, no to temptations that weaken your progress. People think discipline is restrictive, but the truth is discipline is freedom. When you have discipline, you are not controlled by laziness, fear, or excuses. You are in control of yourself, and that is the ultimate power. When you combine habits, faith, and discipline, you are no longer building on sand, you are building on rock. The storms of life are guaranteed, but your preparation determines the outcome. Some people crumble under stress because their foundation is weak. They never build habits, so they fall apart when things get tough. They never develop faith, so they quit at the first sign of failure. They never embrace discipline, so they drift aimlessly with no consistency. Others face the same storm but stand tall because their foundation is solid. They keep working through the pain because habits keep them grounded. They keep believing through the dark because faith gives them vision. They keep pushing forward because discipline keeps them on track. Replacing weak foundations is not easy. It requires tearing down what you thought worked. Maybe you've been living with procrastination so long that it feels natural. Maybe you've been doubting yourself so often that faith feels foreign. Maybe you've been so inconsistent that discipline feels impossible. But none of that is permanent. Just like a builder can remove cracked concrete and pour in new cement, you can replace your habits, reshape your mindset, and rewire your routines. You can choose discipline over laziness. You can choose faith over fear. You can choose growth over comfort. Rebuilding is a decision you make every single day to let go of what weakens you and replace it with what strengthens you. And here's the truth: nobody can replace your foundation for you. People can motivate you, inspire you, give you advice, but at the end of the day, you've got to do the work of rebuilding. You've got to look at your own life honestly and ask yourself, what cracks need to go? Are your habits building you up or breaking you down? Is your faith strong enough to carry you when the plan falls apart? Is your discipline sharp enough to keep you moving when distractions call your name? Only when you answer those questions honestly can you begin the process of replacing weak foundations with ones that will actually last. When you finally build on strong foundations, you stop being fragile. You stop collapsing every time life gets rough. You stop questioning your worth every time someone rejects you. You stop quitting every time you fail. Instead, you become resilient, stable, unshakable. People look at you and wonder how you keep standing when everything around you is falling apart. And the answer is simple. You rebuilt yourself with habits, faith, and discipline that don't break under pressure. You are no longer just surviving. You are prepared for success that can be sustained over the long run. You can't rebuild for success while holding on to excuses, toxic people, or small thinking. Because every time you try to move forward while dragging these weights, you end up stuck in the same place. Excuses are like chains that tie you to failure. Toxic people are like anchors that pull you back into the storm you're trying to escape. Small thinking is like a cage that locks you inside a limited version of yourself. If you're serious about rebuilding, you have to cut ties with all three. You cannot expect to create a stronger version of yourself if you keep protecting the very things that weakened you in the first place. Excuses, negative company, and limited vision are enemies of growth, and success cannot coexist with them. Excuses sound harmless at first, but they are killers of potential. Every time you say, I can't, because you are reinforcing a belief that keeps you from trying. Excuses give you permission to stay the same. They comfort you by making failure seem acceptable, but in reality, they rob you of progress. The truth is, most excuses are not real barriers. They are just stories you've told yourself so often that you've started believing them. You say you don't have time, but you waste hours scrolling on your phone. You say you don't have opportunities, but you've overlooked the small chances in front of you. You say you're not ready, but waiting for perfect conditions means you'll never start. Excuses are not protection, they are poison. To rebuild yourself, you must hold yourself accountable. You must replace "I can't" with "how can I?" and "I don't have" with "what can I use?" That shift in language alone can transform your mindset and create openings where you once saw obstacles. Then there are toxic people. These are the voices around you that feed doubt into your spirit. They laugh at your dreams, remind you of your past failures, and discourage you from taking risks. Sometimes they are friends, sometimes family, sometimes co-workers, but their impact is the same. They drain your energy and dim your vision. The danger of toxic people is not just what they say, but how much you start to believe them. When you're rebuilding, you are already vulnerable, already questioning yourself, and their negativity can make you abandon the process altogether. That's why it's critical to evaluate the company you keep. Are the people around you pushing you forward or pulling you backward? Are they celebrating your progress or secretly hoping you fail? Rebuilding requires creating boundaries, distancing yourself from negativity, and surrounding yourself with people who inspire, challenge, and believe in your growth. Sometimes the hardest part of rebuilding is realizing that not everyone can go with you to the next level. And then there's small thinking, the silent trap that keeps millions of people living below their potential. Small thinking whispers that you should be satisfied with just enough, that you shouldn't dream too big, that you should stay safe and comfortable. It tells you that success is for other people, not for you. It convinces you that the life you imagine is impossible, so you shrink your goals to fit what seems reasonable. The problem with small thinking is that it shapes your actions. If you believe small, you work small, and if you work small, you achieve small. Success requires expansion of your mind, a willingness to believe in possibilities larger than your current reality. To rebuild for success, you have to break the mental ceiling you've placed on yourself. That means feeding your mind with new ideas, surrounding yourself with examples of people who achieved greatness, and daring to envision a future that scares you because it's so much bigger than where you are now. When you combine excuses, toxic people, and small thinking, you have the perfect recipe for mediocrity. Excuses paralyze you, toxic people discourage you, and small thinking limits you. You can work hard, but if those three are still in your life, they will sabotage your rebuilding process every time. You'll start strong, but quit early. You'll take 2 steps forward and get dragged 3 steps back. The foundation you're trying to build will collapse under their weight. That's why cutting ties with them is not optional. It's essential. If you want success, you must be ruthless about eliminating the things that weaken you. Removing excuses means taking radical responsibility for your life. It means acknowledging that while you can't control everything, you can control your choices, your effort, and your response to challenges. Removing toxic people means being selective with your energy, protecting your peace, and refusing to let negativity live rent-free in your mind. Removing small thinking means stretching your vision, refusing to play safe all the time, and daring to see yourself as someone capable of more than your circumstances suggest. Rebuilding is not just about adding positive things into your life. It's also about subtracting what holds you down. There will always be temptation to hold on. Excuses feel safe because they protect your ego. Toxic people feel familiar because you've known them for years. Small thinking feels comfortable because it doesn't require risk. But none of those things will give you the life you dream about. They will only keep you in cycles of frustration, always wanting more but never reaching it. Letting go may hurt at first, but what hurts more is staying in the same place year after year, because you were too afraid to release what no longer served you. Freedom begins when you put down what is heavy, when you walk away from what is draining, and when you open your mind to what is possible. Only then can you rebuild into a version of yourself that is ready to carry success without collapsing under the weight of old limitations. Failure isn't the enemy, it's the blueprint for your reconstruction. Because every mistake, every setback, every disappointment is information that teaches you how to build stronger, how to build smarter, and how to build with more resilience than before. Most people treat failure like it's final, like it's proof that they're not good enough or not meant to succeed, when in reality, failure is just feedback. It's life showing you where the cracks are, where the foundation is weak, and where you need to adjust. Success is never built without failure, because failure is the process of learning what works and what doesn't, of discovering your limits and then pushing past them. Think about how an architect designs a building. The first draft is never perfect. There are revisions, corrections, adjustments, and sometimes entire sections are torn down to be redesigned. That doesn't mean the building will never stand. It means the blueprint is being refined. In the same way, when you fail, it doesn't mean you'll never succeed. It means your blueprint is being improved. Each failure adds detail, each mistake adds precision, each setback shapes you into someone who knows how to withstand the storms that success will bring. If you avoid failure, you avoid growth. If you fear failure, you fear the very process that will prepare you for greatness. Failure also humbles you. It strips away arrogance and teaches you patience. When everything comes too easily, you begin to think you are invincible. But when you fail, you're reminded that success requires more than talent. It requires persistence, discipline, and adaptability. Failure shows you that you cannot rely on shortcuts, that you cannot depend only on inspiration, that you cannot escape the work it takes to rebuild yourself into someone capable of lasting success. Failure reminds you that you are human, but it also shows you that you are capable of rising again. Every great success story has chapters filled with failure. But those failures became the very fuel that powered the eventual victory. The danger is that too many people stop at failure. They try once, it doesn't work, and they conclude that it's not meant for them. They forget that every failure is a step closer to getting it right. Thomas Edison famously tested thousands of times before creating a working light bulb, and when asked about the failures, he said he didn't fail thousands of times. He discovered thousands of ways that didn't work. That is the mindset of someone who uses failure as a blueprint. Instead of asking, why me? When things fall apart, you should be asking, what is this teaching me? And how can I rebuild better because of it? Those questions turn failure from an enemy into a teacher. From a setback into a stepping stone, failure also reveals character. When you lose, when you fall, when you are embarrassed or rejected, your true resilience is tested. Some people crumble under failure, others rise because of it. It's not the failure itself that decides your outcome, it's how you respond to it. If you use failure as a reason to quit, it becomes your enemy. If you use failure as a reason to grow, it becomes your ally. The same event can either destroy you or develop you, depending on your perspective. Rebuilding yourself for success means adopting the mindset that failure is not the end of the road, but part of the construction. You are not ruined by failure. You are remodeled by another important truth, is that failure sharpens creativity. When your first plan doesn't work, you are forced to think differently, to come up with new strategies, to innovate in ways you wouldn't have if everything went smoothly. Some of the greatest inventions, businesses, and breakthroughs came after repeated failure. The failed attempts open doors to new ideas that eventually work. If you succeed too quickly, you never stretch your creativity, but when you fail, you're forced to dig deeper, to search for solutions beyond the obvious. That process develops resourcefulness, and resourcefulness is one of the greatest tools you can carry into success. Failure also toughens your spirit. Each time you fall and get back up, you become less fragile, less afraid, less intimidated by setbacks. You begin to trust your ability to recover, and that confidence makes you unstoppable. Many people never attempt big dreams because they fear failure. But once you've failed and survived, the fear loses its power. You realize that failure didn't destroy you, it built you. It hurt, but it didn't end you. It slowed you down, but it didn't stop you. That realization gives you courage to take bigger risks, to dream bigger dreams, and to pursue success with relentless determination. Failure, in this sense, is not just part of the blueprint. It is the training ground that conditions you for the weight of success. It is also important to understand that failure creates empathy and wisdom. When you've fallen, you gain compassion for others who are struggling. You stop judging people for their mistakes because you know what it feels like to make your own. You become more patient, more understanding, and more grounded. That wisdom not only helps you lead others, it helps you sustain success because you carry humility and gratitude along with your victories. People who have never failed often lack depth, but those who have rebuilt after failure carry a strength and a perspective that cannot be faked. When you look at your own failures, you must stop seeing them as proof of inadequacy and start seeing them as chapters in your rebuilding story. Every failure you've had was showing you something, pointing you in a direction, preparing you for the next level. It wasn't wasted, it wasn't meaningless, it was shaping you. The pain you felt was carving out space for wisdom. The loss you experienced was making room for gain. The rejection you endured was teaching you resilience. Failure is not a signal to quit. It is a sign to adjust. It is not a wall. It is a detour. It is not a defeat. It is a design. If you embrace it, study it, and learn from it, failure will give you the exact blueprint you need to reconstruct yourself into someone stronger, wiser, and unstoppable. Rebuilding demands vision. See beyond the mess and commit to the process. Because if all you can see is the rubble in front of you, you will never have the strength to create something better. Vision is the ability to see not just what is, but what can be. When you are in the middle of broken pieces, vision allows you to imagine the finished structure. Without vision, you will only focus on the difficulty, the pain, the setbacks, and you will quit before you even begin. Vision is what separates those who stay stuck in the ruins from those who turn those ruins into something greater than what was there before. You cannot rebuild blindly. You must see where you are going even when the path is unclear. Vision requires imagination, and imagination is not just daydreaming. It is blueprinting. When a builder stands on an empty lot, they don't see dirt, they see the building that will rise. They already know how the walls will stand, how the windows will face the light, how the foundation will hold everything up. That's how you must look at your life when everything feels broken. Don't stare at the cracks, imagine the new design. Don't obsess over what you lost, picture what you can gain. If you can hold the vision of who you are becoming, the pain of the process becomes bearable. Without that vision, you'll mistake temporary struggle for permanent defeat. Committing to the process means you understand that rebuilding takes time, patience, and endurance. Too many people want the finished product without the messy middle. They want success, but don't want to go through the season where things look incomplete. They want the applause, but don't want the quiet work behind the scenes. Rebuilding is not glamorous. It looks like long nights, early mornings, sacrifices, mistakes, adjustments, and persistence. Vision allows you to endure that season because you know what you are building toward. Without vision, the process feels pointless. With vision, every brick you lay, every habit you practice, every sacrifice you make feels meaningful because you know it's all part of a bigger picture. One of the biggest challenges when rebuilding is that the people around you may not see what you see. They may only see your mess, your failures, your struggles, and they may laugh or criticize because they cannot imagine what you are building toward. That is why you cannot rely on their vision. You must hold your own. If you allow their limited perspective to shape your decisions, you will abandon your dream. Vision demands that you protect it, nurture it, and keep it alive even when no one else believes. Sometimes you have to walk with a vision so strong that it carries you when encouragement is nowhere to be found. Vision also keeps you from settling. When you don't have vision, you accept whatever comes your way because you don't know what you're working toward. But when you have vision, you become intentional. You don't waste time on distractions that don't fit your future. You don't cling to relationships that don't align with where you're headed. You don't hold on to habits that don't support your growth. Vision acts as a filter that guides your choices. Every decision is measured by one question. Does this move me closer to what I see or does it pull me further away? That clarity allows you to rebuild with purpose instead of randomness. Having vision doesn't mean you will know every step of the journey. Sometimes you will only see the destination, not the road. But that's enough. The vision gives you direction and the process reveals the steps along the way. It's like driving in the dark with headlights. You can't see the whole road, but you can see enough to keep moving forward. As long as you keep the vision in front of you, you'll find the courage to take the next step and then the next until the picture in your mind starts becoming the reality in your life. Vision also transforms how you view obstacles. Instead of seeing them as reasons to quit, you see them as part of the building process. When a wall collapses, you don't panic, you adjust the blueprint. When a mistake happens, you don't abandon the project, you learn and correct. Vision keeps you steady when things don't go as planned. Without vision, obstacles feel like proof that you're failing. With vision, obstacles feel like steps in the journey. That shift in perspective is what allows you to keep rebuilding when others give up. A rebuilding requires vision not only for yourself, but for the future you want to create. If your vision is only about fixing your current pain, it will not be strong enough to sustain you. Your vision has to stretch beyond survival and into purpose. Who are you becoming? What impact do you want to make? What legacy do you want to leave? Those questions fuel a vision that gives your rebuilding process meaning. It's not just about putting pieces back together. It's about constructing a version of yourself that stands tall, inspires others, and creates something that lasts beyond you. The process of rebuilding will test your patience because progress often feels invisible. At first, you may be working hard, changing habits, cutting off negativity, but the results don't show immediately. Vision keeps you moving when results are delayed. It reminds you that the seed is growing underground before it ever breaks the surface. It reminds you that the foundation is being laid before the walls can rise. Vision allows you to trust the process even when you can't see the outcome yet. Without vision, you'll abandon the project halfway. With vision, you'll endure the silence and the slow growth until the breakthrough comes. Vision is also what allows you to rebuild bigger than before. If all you want is to return to what you lost, your rebuilding will always feel small. But if you create a vision that goes beyond restoration and into transformation, you can come back stronger than ever. Don't just rebuild to return to where you were, rebuild to surpass it. That requires imagination, courage, and faith in possibilities beyond your current circumstances. Vision stretches you to believe in more, to work for more, to become more. And that is the essence of rebuilding, not just replacing what was broken, but constructing something greater than what you had before. Every rebuild makes you harder to break, preparing you for greater storms and bigger victories, because each time you go through the process of tearing down, starting over and rising again, you gain a kind of strength that can't be taught in books or handed down by others. It is the strength that only comes from experience, from being tested, from facing adversity head on and refusing to stay down. The first time life knocks you down, it feels like the end of the world. You don't know if you'll ever get back up. But the second time, something inside of you remembers that you survived before, and suddenly the fear is smaller, the pain is less overwhelming, and the confidence to stand up again comes quicker. That is the gift of rebuilding. It trains you not just to survive storms, but to thrive in spite of them. When you rebuild after a setback, you don't just regain what you lost. You add layers of resilience. You become wiser because you now understand where the cracks were. You become stronger because you know what it feels like to lift yourself out of difficulty. You become more disciplined because you realize shortcuts only lead to collapse. Each rebuild becomes another layer of armor, and eventually you are no longer fragile like you once were. People may look at you and think you are lucky, but luck has nothing to do with it. You've simply rebuilt enough times that life can no longer shake you the way it used to. The storms that once terrified you now feel like training exercises because you've been conditioned by struggle. This doesn't mean you'll never feel pain again. Rebuilding doesn't erase hurt, but it transforms how you carry it. The pain that once broke you now fuels you. The rejection that once crushed your spirit now sharpens your focus. The losses that once made you want to quit now make you hungry to keep going. You stop being afraid of the storm because you know storms are temporary, but the strength you build from them is permanent. Every time you get knocked down and rebuild, you move closer to becoming unshakable. That kind of resilience prepares you for opportunities that fragile people cannot handle. Success is not just about reaching the top. It's about staying there when the winds blow, and only those who have rebuilt themselves over and over can stand tall without collapsing under the weight. Rebuilding also gives you perspective. When you've been broken before and managed to come back, you stop panicking every time something goes wrong. You know that loss is not the end. Failure is not final, and setbacks are not permanent. You've been there before. You've walked through the fire, and you've proven to yourself that you can come out on the other side. That perspective allows you to handle future storms with calm and clarity. While others crumble under pressure, you remain steady because you've trained for this. Life doesn't scare you the same way anymore because you understand that every breakdown carries the seed of a breakthrough. Another powerful result of rebuilding is that it increases your capacity for bigger victories. If you had succeeded too early without going through the process of rebuilding, you might not have been able to handle it. Success has weight, and without strength, that weight can crush you. But every time you rebuild, you expand your capacity to carry more. You learn patience, endurance, humility, and wisdom, and those qualities prepare you to sustain greater success. The victories that once felt out of reach become manageable because you are no longer the same person who once struggled to stand. You are rebuilt into someone who can handle more responsibility, more pressure, and more success without crumbling under. Rebuilding also teaches you gratitude. When you've lost and had to start over, you don't take victories for granted. You appreciate progress more deeply because you know what it took to earn it. You value opportunities because you know how easily they can be taken away. Gratitude keeps you grounded, and that grounding prevents arrogance from destroying you once success arrives. The people who have rebuilt are often the most thankful, the most humble, and the most generous because they understand that nothing is guaranteed and everything is earned. That mindset not only makes you stronger, it makes you a better leader, a better friend, a better human being. There's also something powerful about the confidence that comes from rebuilding. Confidence is not built by everything going right. It's built by surviving when everything goes wrong. Each rebuild proves to you that you are capable of more than you thought. That self-belief becomes unshakable because it is not based on theory. It is based on evidence. You've lived through the breakdown, you've endured the rebuilding, and you've emerged stronger. That confidence becomes your shield in the face of doubt, your weapon against fear, and your anchor in the storm. People can try to discourage you, but you know deep down that you've already beaten worse. Situations can try to intimidate you, but you remember the times you stood back up. That confidence cannot be fake. It must be earned through rebuilding. Every rebuild also changes the way you approach the future. You stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what will I learn if I do? You stop avoiding challenges and start embracing them because you see them as opportunities to grow stronger. You stop wishing for an easy path and start preparing for a meaningful one. Success becomes less about avoiding pain and more about mastering it. This shift in mindset makes you unstoppable because no matter what happens, you already know how to rebuild. You've practiced it, you've lived it, and you're ready for it. The storms don't scare you because you know storms are part of the journey. The bigger victories don't intimidate you because you've been building the strength to carry them all along. The truth is that rebuilding is never waste. Every time you go through it, you level up. You don't just get back what you lost, you gain resilience, wisdom, gratitude, confidence, and strength. And each of those qualities prepares you for greater challenges and greater victories than the ones before. You become the kind of person who doesn't just chase success, but sustains it, who doesn't just dream big, but builds big, who doesn't just survive storms, but walks through them with power. Rebuilding is the process that transforms fragile lives into unbreakable ones. And those unbreakable lives are the ones that rise to heights others never reach.